Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome President and COO JetBlue Airways, Joanna Geraghty, in discussion with Skift Aviation Business Editor Brian Summers.
Hello, everyone. It's good to be here with Joanna. I learned something very interesting backstage. You probably don't know this, but apparently Joanna went into labor here at Lincoln Center.
I went into labor in this room, so hopefully it's less painful today than it was then.
Let's hope so. I'm looking forward to this. I find you guys very interesting. One, because you have a lot less market share than most people think. Do you guys in the audience know how much market share JetBlue has in the domestic market? You can actually show it with one hand. It's 5%, probably less than you think. So I'm curious, when you're competing with these behemoth airlines, and they're really big, and they can be arrogant sometimes, how do you do it?
Yeah, I mean, I think we've long said that we have a brand
Yep.
And a culture that boxes above our weight. And I think if you look at our network and where we're concentrated, we are in very high value geography. Where a lot of people want to fly to and fly out of. And so I think that naturally gives us a greater reach than perhaps what our market percentage would otherwise indicate. You know, I think the question that we struggle with is not, you know, how big do you need to be, but at what point is too big suffocating competition in this industry? Because it's so important from JetBlue's perspective to ensure that there is competition, because that's what disciplines carriers to provide great service and keep prices down.
Okay. Let's see. You guys led recently on something that I didn't expect. Mm-hmm. You were the first airline to come out and charge $30 for a check bag if purchased at the airport, and everyone followed. What made you guys decide you wanted to do it?
Yeah, I mean, we study very carefully the things that our customers value the most.
Yep.
And in this environment with rising fuel prices and being a 5% player, it's really important that we ensure we are addressing our customers' needs. Our customers, based on all the research that we continuously do, they very much value the entertainment on board, the most legroom and coach that we offer, and our in-flight experience, so our great in-flight crew members. And so when we think about where we want to double down, it's on that in-flight experience. As we think about fees, that's something that, from our perspective, we want to be competitive with. But let's face it, I mean, nobody likes fees. Fees are, you know, something that is necessary because it enables carriers to better manage inventory when there are changes and things like that nature for change and cancel fees. But we're going to be competitive in fees, and we are going to win on the product and the service that we deliver. Okay.
There are a few things that differentiate you for the competition, as you say. You have a little bit more legroom, 1 or 2 inches. You have the free TV, you have the free Wi-Fi. Nobody really expects free Wi-Fi on an airplane. It's a nice perk. People are surprised by it. Why not charge for it, or why not densify your seating like other airlines have done?
Yeah, I mean, for us, you know, we were founded back in 2000, and our mission was to bring humanity back to air travel. And if you think about 2000 and what it was like back then, there was a lot of competitors out there. There was a lot more carriers, but the service that was delivered was pretty poor. And so we made our mark with leather seats, unlimited snacks, the full can of Coke. I don't know if you remember, even today, you get that little cup. We had some ads for a while that, you know, were making fun of, you know, I can actually get the whole can of Coke. And we want to continue with that vision. Our mission is to inspire humanity. Our mission is to make sure that that onboard product is just great. And that's why we don't compromise in things like legroom and snacks and onboard Wi-Fi and entertainment. It's, you know, an opportunity to capture a customer for 3 hours and make that experience really enjoyable, and hope that they come back again.
Okay. So we talked about how your competitors are ruthless. It sometimes seems like schoolyard bullying. We were talking before about JetBlue is trying to get into Atlanta. You finally got in. You've been flying, I think, from Boston and JFK to Atlanta. Folks may or may not know this, but Delta essentially runs that airport, and they have more than 1,000 departures a day. Yeah. They don't really want you there, right?
Yeah, I mean, listen, it's a competitive environment, and I think some of the larger legacy carriers like being very dominant in those markets. Delta currently occupies 75% of Atlanta Hartsfield. We stated an intention to go in several years back. We were promised the ability to operate out of Terminal F, Concourse F, and 2 weeks before we were set to start operation, we were advised, F's not available. Maybe you can go to D&E. And now it's a split operation. At times we have 3 flights on the ground, which makes it incredibly difficult for our crew members and providing that great service, but also, customers arrive and they're surprised that it's not as seamless an experience as we would like to offer. So, from my perspective, we continue to trailblaze in these areas where maybe we're not wanted, because we do view ourselves as a force for good in this industry. If you look at what the competitive effect we've had in Boston, LaGuardia, fares before JetBlue entered that market exceeded $450 for a walk-up fare. They're now more than half that price. The change that we can affect going into markets that are dominated by just 1 or 2 large carriers is remarkable. And when we think about other carriers that are trying to do that, this industry needs competition. This industry needs companies that offer a better product, because it forces everybody to raise their game, and that's sort of our philosophy and our view.
Okay. You know what else needs competition? The US to Europe route, not necessarily in economy class, because those fares are shockingly cheap, but up in the front of the airplane. How about making some news for us today? You've been teasing Europe. Are you going to Europe, and if so, when?
So we haven't made any decisions yet. I want to be very clear. This gets headlines all the time. For years, it's been, headlines, JetBlue flies to Europe. We're not making any news today, I'm sorry. But I went online this morning anticipating this might be a question asked. And to fly business class from JFK or Newark to Heathrow is $8,000. If you went today and booked a flight. I don't know about you, but I'm not paying $8,000, even though I'm sure the experience will be a nice business class experience. So JetBlue looks at Europe and thinks, yes, there's definitely an opportunity to potentially disrupt the transatlantic market. It's no great secret looking at the A321 long-range aircraft, which is the 321 platform with an auxiliary fuel tank. And we think it could be a pretty interesting option. But that particular aircraft is a very valuable asset for us. So we need to make sure that the highest and best use would be Europe as opposed to another market in the United States. So our teams are actively looking at it. We think there's a pretty cool opportunity there. And hopefully, we'll see.
Okay. Yeah. So you go into that market that now has $8,000 business class fares, and you can disrupt it, and that's great. But I've been following this industry long enough to know what happens next. The established airlines, they just lower their prices, they match you, they add seats, they add capacity, and they try to push you guys away. Is that a fear?
I think when you look at what we've been able to accomplish with Mint, so we launched our premium product called Mint Class a couple years ago, and originally the intent was to fly JFK Boston to San Francisco and Los Angeles, and we are now in 18 routes. We've got more than 80 flights a day that have Mint Class, and we've succeeded tremendously, and it's largely because the product and the service. And you can match prices, that happens, but it's very difficult when you have created a company from the ground up that focuses on people and focuses on that differentiated experience in flight. It's hard to match that, because at the end of the day, our in-flight crew members are delivering an exceptional service. They're the ones, I read all of our Mint surveys, they come into my phone every day, and they are mentioned by name in nearly every survey. And I can't think of other industries, let alone other airlines, where the people delivering the service are doing it in such a remarkable way that customers actually write in and say, Jennifer did a fantastic job. So when we think about transatlantic, we do think we can disrupt, and we think we can disrupt largely around a Mint-like product because we've been so successful flying to the West Coast with Mint.
Okay, so the conventional wisdom has always been you can only fly flatbeds domestically to basically the 3 cities where people have way too much money. I live in one of them, LA.
Yep.
This is another one, the other one's San Francisco.
Yep.
You're flying these flatbed seats with suites with doors to what, Seattle, Vegas, Phoenix also?
No, not Phoenix. San Diego, Las Vegas, Seattle, San Francisco, Los Angeles.
Does it work outside of the big financial centers?
It does. I mean, so before JetBlue entered that market, there were very few flatbed products, even on the JFK, LA, and San Francisco route. When we came in, the industry essentially matched the flatbed product across a number of different routes. We now have flatbed seats on 18 of our routes. There are 10 now that did not have a lie-flat product before that now have it. So it is, we have 16 of them, and they have a little, some of them have a little door, so it's a single suite. Customers love that. That always sells out like that. I guess maybe they don't want to fly with their friend, but it's been tremendously successful. Now, will it work everywhere? No. There needs to be enough of a first-class premium market for it to work in, but we've demonstrated that it can work in a lot more places than originally anticipated.
Okay. There's a lot of positivity, of course, at JetBlue, but then the big but is coming. One thing that you guys have not been particularly successful on recently is on-time performance. Check the new numbers came out for July. It looked like you were last among airlines, including the code-share partners. What's going on?
So we weren't last.
You weren't last?
No, we weren't last.
Who was last?
I believe, I don't want to say who's last.
Okay.
I know who was behind us, but I'm not going to say who's last. I'm not sure exactly who was last.
Okay.
Here's the challenge that we have. We are the single carrier that flies into the most congested airspace in the United States. JetBlue, 70% of our routes hit congested airspace. The next carrier after us is United, largely because of their Newark and San Francisco operation. But at the end of the day, customers who fly into JFK and Boston, I think, are savvy enough to know that laws of supply and demand, ATC issues, that these are markets where there are likely going to be delays. And if you actually look at JetBlue's performance in those markets relative to the rest of the industry, it's about on par. So, you know, we very much measure our performance on a relative basis in the markets that we operate. It's really hard to compare JetBlue with Hawaiian. They're in the peer set for on-time performance. They will always be more on time than JetBlue because of their network. So we manage, I think, as best we can in this environment. We run a great operation in these markets. We're great at recovering when there are disruptions. And we are making investments that we need to make very strategically to ensure that our on-time performance does improve.
Okay. I was just looking at the July numbers. You were just about 60% on-time arrivals at JFK. The competitors were slightly better. I mean, is this a number that you have to improve even if there's difficulties?
Yeah, I mean, we are always focused on improving our on-time performance. We want to be better, and that's where the efforts of our team are focused right now. Listen, everybody would love to be 100%, but the reality is that there are ATC delays. Yesterday, JFK is a great example, just a tough operation, and we do our best to manage through it.
Okay. We've sat on this stage for a very long time. I've noticed something. You're a woman. This is extremely rare in the airline industry. Maybe not in other industries. As far as I can tell, you're the only president of a U.S. airline since Colleen Barrett at Southwest Airlines, and she left in 2008, and there's nobody else at this level. What does this mean for you, and then why is this the case?
That's what I'm told too. Wow. So yeah, I mean, it's humbling to be the most senior woman in the airline industry. It's also frustrating though, because at the end of the day, it shouldn't be that way. And as I look across JetBlue and the tremendous female crew members and leaders that we have, making sure that every level of the organization has better gender parity is so important. Because you're not going to solve the issues at the CEO level, at the president level, without every level having 50% men, 50% women. And, you know, I don't know how it got here in terms of this industry in particular. I happen to notice, actually, we have a dinner tonight, and there's two presidents of cruise lines, and they're actually both women. And I kind of looked up a little bit about the cruise line industry, and I guess that's actually very different there. There's a lot more women at the kind of top leadership levels. So there's a lot of work to do in the airline industry, a lot of work to do. And I think it's, as I said, making sure that that talent pipeline is rich with diversity, but also making sure that at every company there's champions for women across the organization so that they feel they have a voice and a path, and seeing people that look like them and support them as they work on their career and their upward trajectory.
Are there any specific policies that you have in place about trying to recruit a certain number of women and things like that?
Yeah, we haven't put into place any specific targets like, 50% at the leadership level by a certain date. We have not done that yet. It's not to say we won't. For us, it's about exposure, it's about opportunities, and it's about, mentorship is a component of it, but it's really about education and making sure that leadership teams appreciate that, even beyond gender, it's so important to have a team that has diversity of thought. It's easier to have people around you that all agree with what you say, right? It makes it easier to get your job done. But at the end of the day, you don't get to the best decisions and you don't get to the smartest answers when you don't have really diverse views across the table, pressure testing ways of thinking and pressure testing different approaches. And so, I look at Robin, who's our CEO. I mean, he's been very focused on, diversity of women, but also diversity of thought. And everybody's opinion matters, and everybody needs to feel safe to speak up and not feel stupid making a comment that, some might roll their eyes at, because everything really matters when you're, working as a leader and making big decisions that affect your company.
Okay. You actually have another senior leader here who is a woman, Bonnie Sinmi. She runs JetBlue Tech Ventures. She actually flew here yesterday. She's a captain of an E190, which I think is pretty cool.
He's remarkable.
Yes, but I'll segue here to JetBlue Tech Ventures. Sure. Why do you have this fund?
Yeah, so we saw an opportunity several years ago to create a company based in Silicon Valley that focuses on innovation in the travel ribbon. So, how cool would it have been for an airline 10 years ago to have invested in like an Uber or an Airbnb? We were too late to the scene, but there are some really great ideas out there from maintenance planning to how we distribute and sell airline tickets to weather to training that we think if we're at the front end of working with some of these companies that we can take advantage of that. So not only is it about making investments, and we're not particularly focused on returns, we're focused on trying to put our money into smart companies that have great ideas that will benefit the industry as a whole. And it's also about how do we help incubate some of their ideas. So we've got a number of very cool organizations that we are incubating with and that we are working with to help them build their products so that it can solve real-life issues for airlines and other organizations in the travel space.
Okay, one of them, I think, as we discussed, was something called Gladly, right?
Yeah.
What do they do?
So Gladly is very cool. Think about when you call an airline, there'll be a record of that phone call. You may email them after, and there'll be a record of an email, and then you might tweet something. Right now, a reservation agent doesn't have visibility into all of those points of interaction with the customer. And so what Gladly does is it's a platform that essentially takes all of those different points of interaction and consolidates them into a single customer view so that the reservation agent can pull up you, for example, and Brian, I see you flew us on Mint yesterday.
He complains a lot, that Brian guy.
He complains a lot, so be very careful, and he's got a lot of followers, so be really careful. But it enables the reservation agent to actually have a full view of the customer. And it makes their job a lot easier. It also enables us to serve the customer much better because we know and have a full picture of their experiences. The other component of Gladly is it also sources answers to questions that might come up involving that customer. So it has a learning component that scans the emails and scans the texts and says, oh, we lost your bag. So it may pop up, lost bag, here's how the customer will go and file a claim for it. So it's a phenomenal tool. We're sort of in the early stage of rolling it out. We've also invested in it. And by partnering with Gladly, we're able to make sure that the needs of JetBlue are reflected in the tool and how it's being built.
And before this, you really had no idea who the customer was every time?
Yeah, before this, it was very disjointed. For concerning customer issues, you would spend the time to actually try to pull together the different touch points. But in this case, we can have this single customer profile in all cases. The other piece that's very cool is it has an online chat feature, and that gets pulled in as well. One of the other interesting things we're noticing is it's also going to change the role of the reservation agent because their job will be much less about answering phone calls and much more about communicating through different modes, and that requires a slightly different skill set than answering a phone.
Okay. I'm going to ask you a related question. You've been at JetBlue for more than a decade, and that means that you overlapped with the greatest airline entrepreneur of our time, David Neeleman. And folks may know that he started JetBlue. He left in about 2007. By 2020, he's going to be back with his own new airline, and they may be a new competitor for you. You guys are the challenger brand now. How do you feel about David coming back into this?
Yeah, so I've been with JetBlue since 2005, so I overlapped with him. I was a lawyer at the time. for a few years, and I had the pleasure of working for Dave Barger, the CEO after David and now Robin. And I can tell you, David is a phenomenal entrepreneur. If he has a great idea, it's likely a really great idea. I think I'll ladder back to my comment about competition. We welcome competition in this space. Competition fundamentally is better for consumers and the traveling public. I think airlines need to differentiate themselves on the product and the service they offer. Obviously, price is a consideration, but I welcome him back into the U.S. airline market. We partner with him right now with Azul and with TAM. He's involved with both of those, and it's been a great relationship, and it'll be interesting to see where they go and potentially fly head-to-head.
It's going to be very interesting. Yeah. He hasn't said all that much about what he plans.
No, he hasn't, yeah.
All right, we have some audience questions here. Let's take a look. I have some power here, so I can decide which ones we take. We sort of answered the first one a little bit. So let me ask the third one. What partnerships or marketing campaigns have proven to be exceptionally successful for JetBlue?
Yeah, so we have a campaign right now called You Above All, and that is a campaign we've had for quite a while. It's lasted, and it's had a lasting effect across both our customer base, but also internally. It really resonates. We're looking at what that evolves to. We know that it resonates extremely well with our Caribbean markets, so we're trying to be very thoughtful about how we evolve. That's been a great campaign for us. We had one, probably 10 years ago called Happy Jetting. I don't know if anybody remembers that one. That did not resonate so well. Thank you for jetting, not flying. It was kind of a nuance that was hard to pick up on for our crew members, frankly, as they delivered service. But the You Above All campaign has proven to be great, and we have a number of fantastic partnerships. We currently partner with more than 40 airlines around the world. We have a great partnership with some of the signature brands on our flights. I'd say Dunkin' Donuts, but it's now Dunkin'. So we partner with Dunkin', much to my 10-year-old chagrin who thinks donuts are now going away. But yeah, so we have a number of great partnerships.
Okay, I wanted to ask you my own follow-up question about marketing. There's this old joke in the airline industry, right, that people pick flights based on 4 attributes. Mm-hmm. Price, 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 and schedule.
Yeah.
So you go to Google Flights, you see what's cheapest, you do it. And yet you have all these great marketing campaigns that are trying to make me feel good.
Yeah.
Is it worth it? Is there a rate of return?
Yeah, I mean, I think, the long-held belief is that the airline industry is a commodity. And for 18 years, JetBlue has proven that it's not a commodity. When you talk to people about, or when I say I work at JetBlue, I generally hear, oh my God, I love JetBlue. And that love and just sense of kind of feeling towards a brand, I think is frankly absent when you think about some of the other airlines in the industry. And so, we position ourselves as, this brand that has established that an airline is more than a commodity, that you can differentiate on product and service. We position ourselves kind of right between the legacy carriers and the ultra low cost carriers. And I think we've done a really good job. We are an incredibly trusted brand. If you look at some of the work we did in Puerto Rico last summer coming out of the hurricanes, we step into communities when they are down and come and support them. The communities we fly to, it's more than just putting flights in there. It's about building a relationship and a commitment to that community. During the Puerto Rico hurricane last year, we actually had brands reaching out to us, asking us whether they could donate money to JetBlue, who would in turn support Puerto Rico, or whether we could recommend charitable organizations that they could donate to. I don't know many airlines that are viewed as sort of this intermediary on sort of not-for-profits, right? And I think that goes back to the trusted brand that we've created and the fact that we have over 18 years proven that customers care about service. Now, price is important and schedule is important. Those are the 2 large drivers of customer choice. But once you get past that, we know for JetBlue, it's our onboard entertainment, it's our legroom, and it's our service. So we think we've proven the model is different for JetBlue and it can work really well.
And the TVs are staying.
The TVs are staying, yeah. We're actually upgrading. If anybody's flown on our new 321, You'll see that we've upgraded to the new Live TV 4 system, and in early 2018, we'll be putting the Avant system on our aircraft, which is pretty cool to have Bluetooth streaming, 100 channels of DirecTV, and lots of stored content, so yeah. And then obviously we have our Wi-Fi product, which is absolutely, hands down, the best in the sky, and it's free.
Of course, there are other airlines that have the same product.
It's much better than
Okay. All right.
because it's free.
We are out of time. Thank you so much.
Thank you.